ready to occur. Now, all of this we know is also in all your vampire movies and in your Dracula movies. Same concept. Whatever this is going to come through the blood system, and all we're talking about here is the different stages of melanin. But I know you heard some of this stuff before, but now we are talking about hands-on research, and I'm getting ready to go into in a few minutes on the breakthrough on how this particular thing is done, and this has a lot to do with sexual kung fu. But not the sexual kung fu of what you have been learning on the basic tantric level, which we'll get into some of that, but I'm talking about a new way to deal with this stuff. And we're not talking about, in this particular case, we're not talking about something that's based on a theory or based on a certain amount of practices coming out of these books. We're talking about complete engagement with certain entities that I had the privy in the last 2 months to get down with. So I ain't talking about no theories. I'm talking about the real deal shit right here, the real deal Jimmy. The enchilada. So, and on this realm, she's no nonsense. This thing is no joke. It ain't, it's beautiful and divine when it want to be. But a lot of time when it comes, it's a destructive element. Now get the book by Alan Danilo, I think his name is. Alan Danilo. It's a book called Hindu Gods and Goddesses. Hindu gods and goddesses. And then they talk about Pravati, which is Aset in East India. And they said her nature is that of a destructive element because on the inside of her, she is Kali, the goddess of destruction. And they're talking about the basic nature of the black woman. Basic nature of the black woman. So what, and I'm not talking about something negative. I'm talking about supreme power. What you don't like about the black woman, believe me, that's orientation compared to what she really is. Shit. That's like an expression or a mere simulation of this diabolical demon here that's getting ready to hit the planet. They said a great woman, great mother's coming back and she is pissed. There is no end to her evil. And I ain't talking about in the negative sense. I'm talking about as far as the power. But then again on here, it is evil. It is evil. Now, going on. Now, listen. Go back to the book, the Upanishads, Principal Upanishads, where they also talk about when a person goes to sleep, when they go to the deepest form of sleep, they're at their highest level of self, or their highest realm, or their highest level. Go back to the Principal Upanishads, and they talk about that deep aspect of sleep and the highest level. So it's called Beyond the Wall of Sleep. Now, in this particular aspect, a couple of things happen to line up before we go into what this particular thing is actually going on, dealing with. Couple of things to try to understand. On April 8th, 9th, and 10th of the past month was the April 8th, 9th, and 10th of the past month was the 10-year anniversary. The 10-year anniversary of the coming of the Book of the Law. The Book of the Law, as you know, was given to Crawley April 8th, 9th, and 10th, 1904. This is not the 10-year anniversary, the 100-year anniversary of April 8th, 9th, and 10th of 1904 was given to Aleister Crowley. That means, and at that particular time of 1904, they was talking about the equinox of the gods. But at that particular time in 1904, we were dead. You see what I'm saying? At that particular time, we didn't know our ass from a hole in the ground. Now, what they're not telling you is this 100 years later of a new equinox of the gods, they're not talking about. The equinox of the gods then was a spiritual force that came to the planet. The equinox of the god that comes back 100 years later, because we have privy to other information now, means that those particular gods have now manifested in a select group of people, which, going back to what I talked about the last time in the conference and I talked about now, is, in so many words, it's like the unbreakable thing the brother was mentioning. In so many words here, what we're talking about here is, at this particular time, you are more advanced than what you think. That's why this time when I came, I put more emphasis on magic. Because the magic now, the stuff that you do now magically, and in this particular book now, the stuff that you do now magically now, it has to work. Why? Because the equinox of the gods this time means that there's those particular gods that, as a spiritual current of 100 years ago, now has come back as a manifestation of a group of people. In this particular case, it is you. It's just that at this particular time, our minds are not lined up on the magical aspect because we still think that we are humans. And that time has now passed. Now, this means now that these particular books, Magic Made Easy, by Patricia Telesco, which is one that you must get because it's the most simplest book I have found. And I got a lot of these books. This is one that's very simple. Magic Made Easy by Patricia Telesco, T-E-L-E-S-C-O, T-E-L-E-S-C-O. In this particular book here, Charms, Spells, Potions, and Power, one key that they're not telling you here is when you buy these books from Barnes & Nobles and Borders, and I talked about this before, they do not work unless you incorporate something that is uniquely you that comes out of your mind. So the power and the gateway to reactivate these particular spells have to come from you and something that, because the channel is so smooth and so it's going to come on such a subtle level until you're going to think that this is something that's coming out of your head and something you're making up. So what I am trying to tell you to get the highest form of this magic is you get these particular books, you can read them to get the basic format on how magic is done. Okay? Once you get the basic format on how magic is done, then you come into these books and you create some things to go within what you see, what they tell you what to do. So they tell you to do a certain amount of things in these books. To make it work, create something within the complex of what they tell you. Encapsulate something that's coming from your imagination. And that's what it does, is it activates these books, because the government know that they're selling these books in all the stores because they know that most of the magic don't work. And only thing you got to do to reactivate the magic, even in this one and the ISIS magic, is to create something to go along with what you're reading. And at this particular time, because you all now are the manifestation of the gods on earth. So it's not the coming of the gods. The first equinox of the gods was 1904, herald a prophecy of the gods coming. What we're talking about here is the complete manifestation of the gods, and at this particular time, no one knows at this particular time that they have the power. You see what I'm saying? So that is the difference by using this particular book and the Isis Magic book by M. Isadora Forrest. Trust me on this one. You have the actual power to do it. Another thing you got to do at this particular time to make this particular power work is you can't doubt yourself. And you can't say that it's not going to work and I will just see that it works. You have to put it in your mind that it's going to work and forget about it. You see what I'm saying? And forget about it. Moving right along, I want to give a couple of things in these because I don't want to get away with some of the stuff that's in these particular books at the particular time. This is a book called Ohms